Hello everyone, welcome to lesson 2. This lesson will be on math operations in Java. And this is going to be a relatively short lesson, and one of the reasons it'll be short is because it will be all in the interactions window. So if you want to follow along, just pull this way up and click on the interactions tab. And we'll just do some simple math operations in Java. Like I showed you in the first lesson, we can do something like 5 plus 5, it returns 10. Notice that white space doesn't really make a difference in Java, so any of those work. Of course, I can make up any number I want, and the plus operation will work just fine. You can't make up any number you want. Now that was kind of a lie. I mean, you can get ridiculous. See this literal out of range, and maybe later we'll learn how to deal with that, but it's very unlikely that you'll need to keep track of a number this big unless you're doing some scientific or mathematical programming. So, let's see, what's next? We have negative numbers, so we can say 5 plus negative 5, right? And that's going to be a 0. A lot of times what I like to do when having negative numbers is just wrap it in a parenthesis like that. And that way it's just easy to tell, because if you see something like 5 plus minus 0, well, like I said, white space isn't a big deal in Java, so that's going to do something really weird. I put 0 instead of 5, so it's not really weird. 5 plus minus 5. Can't type there. Okay, 5 plus minus 5 is 0. You saw just there that negative 0 is equal to 0, so negative 0, I can say 5 plus negative 0, and that's perfectly legal. Negative 0 is the same as positive 0 as far as Java is concerned. Next thing we look at is the minus. So the negative operator and the minus operator are the same character. It's this little hyphen. And it works just like that. Now when there's a left and a right hand side, then it acts as a minus. So I have a 5 and a minus and a 2. The 5 is the left hand side, the 2 is the right hand side, so that's a minus, right? But if I just have a right-hand side, no left-hand side, or say I had some other operator here, so it was like 5 plus negative 5. Now it knows to treat this not as a minus, but as a negative, because there's no left-hand side. So I could say negative 5 plus 10. Of course, all these negative numbers work. Just to show you your max and minimum values, I can say that this is the maximum value for an integer, and the minimum value is very similar. It's the exact same number with a negative sign in front, except this is an 8, this is a 7, and I can go into an explanation why that is, but if you think you're clever enough to figure it out yourself, then that would be really cool. So maybe I'll explain this in the next lesson. Okay, next thing we have is multiply. A lot of people say that the X is the multiplication sign, but in most computer languages, the asterisk or the star is a multiplication symbol. So I can do any kind of multiplication, not a percent, but an asterisk, and it works just as you'd expect. And the last thing we have, well, not last thing, the next thing we have is divide. And it works very similar to the way you'd expect. So there's one slight difference, though. What if I gave you 5 divided by 2? Well, you'd say that might be 5 halves or 2.5. But in Java, we go directly to 2. So everything after the decimal point it just gets truncated, and it's the smallest integer down. So if I said 9 divided by 4, right, that would be 2, because 4 goes into 9 2 times, and then that extra bit is dropped off. So we'll get back to that in just a second. The next operation we have is modulus, and that's a percent sign. And if you haven't programmed before, you might not have seen this. And it goes hand in hand with the divides, because it's like dividing, except you don't want the quotient, which here when I did 9 divided by 4, the quotient was 2, but you want the remainder. And so the quotient was 2, but the remainder was 1. Because 9 divided by 4, well, if you did elementary school, you might have learned about remainders. And it would be like how many more you'd need to reach 9 if you multiplied this by this. So say 9% 4. That's basically saying divide 9 by 4 and then tell me what the remainder is. And that is, of course, 1. Because 4 times 2, which is the quotient, plus 1 equals 9, right? So what is 10% 5? Okay, so 10 divided by 5 is 2, right? And there is no remainder, so the remainder is 0. A good way to use remainder is to find out if a number is even, because we know that all even numbers are divisible by 2. So if we say 10% 2, well, that's 0, so that means 10 is an even number. Anytime you say percent 2 and the answer is 0, then this is going to be an even number. So if I have an even number, percent 2, it's 0. But if I have an odd number, percent 2, it'll be what? Should be 1, right? So that's a good thing. You'll be using percent a lot, actually, more often than you think. And the last thing we have is decimals. So I've only been working with integers up till now, and I even said that if you get a decimal result, it's going to just give you your answer as an integer, and maybe you can do something with the remainder. But if you use a decimal, 8.0 instead of 8, for example, then it's going to give you your full answer to the nearest precision it can. So there you saw 8.0 divided by 3. It works the other way around, 8 divided by 3.0, and you'll get the same answer. So anytime one of the operations is a decimal value, you will get a decimal result. So even if I had something that only requires integers, like 10.0 plus 5, it's going to give me back the answer as a decimal, as you can see. So that's really all I have for now. For the next lesson, which will be sort of a part 2, we're going to learn more about binary and our bitwise operators, and those are some crazy things. They look kind of like that. There's that one, there's that one, there's that one, there's the and there's the pipe, and we'll just kind of see what those are all about, and hope you come back and see us. All right, thanks. Bye-bye. Oh, okay, one more thing I really need to mention is I kind of showed you earlier, but we have parentheses in Java, and they do exactly what you'd expect. So if I were to say 5 plus 3 times 10, well, order of operations says do the 3 times 10 first. So this is going to be 30, and then plus 5 is going to be 35. But say I wanted to do the plus operation first, and then multiply the result by 10, and so this is going to be 8 times 10, which is 80. Of course that works. Now, you can use nested parentheses all day long, but you can only use the parentheses. You can't use brackets to group things together. You can't use these braces or anything else. You can only use parentheses. So This is perfectly legal. Okay, and that's all I have to show you. Bye.